welcome to the morning program, The Dailies. Today being the 13th of March 2024, where we keep you updated with all that is happening on the papers. Especially we know the crisis that took place in the Senate, and then where we're saying that Ningi have been suspended from the House. So we have quite a number of other stories that you can actually look through as we take the stories together. I am Sela Elisha Dasham, and I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning,
Rachel.
Celia.
Morning. And to our viewers, please remember you can follow us live on YouTube and then drop your comment, your views on any of the story that is of interest to you this morning. And let us dive straight into the papers, starting with the first news.
On First News newspaper, you lied. You've never served me with any impeachment notice, Shaibu tells Edo's speaker. Tinubu Akpabio orders meet in Aso Rock after Ningi's suspension. Again, terrorist kidnaps cause in fresh Kaduna attack. Army uncovers gun manufacturing factory in Delta State. Police rearrest Mohbad's friend, Prime Boy. Tinubu appoints head of service permanent secretaries for FCT. Now the big story on the paper, 3.7 trillion naira budget padding allegation. Senate wields big stick, suspends Ningi as 500 million naira palliative scandal rocks upper chamber. Ningi resigns as Northern Senators Forum chairman. On the 2024, Guba Ayedatiwa officially declares ambition as Borough Office Okumba, I take that name again, as Borough Office Okumba, e.g. Shegun Ojo, other APC elders rally support for governor. Wike's connection, APC picks PDP's Abede Ihama as Akpahulo's running mate. Abuja mob burns car, shops over killing of fleeing suspect. Aggrieved senators plotting to unseat you, Senate leader warns Akpabio. And at the downside of the paper, Atiku denies dumping PDP, slams Tinubu. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, FG probes 107 varsities over fake degrees. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. And on abduction, we have reps tackle NSA IG deploys squad in Kaduna and Kano State. The big story is still on the issue of the budget paddling controversy. Ranking senators get 17 billion naira constituencies vote. Ningi suspended. Senators got 500 million naira vote each, says Jerabe, and then Ningi resign as the Northern Caucus chair. Opeyemi says 500 million naira for constituencies project, alleges some lawmakers plotting Akpabio's removal. More detailed in the paper. The picture story here we can see the army boss illegal gun factory in Delta arrest 8. We can see some of the suspected people there, and then some of the armories they were able to recover from that place. Still on the Punch newspaper, Ayeda Tiwa declares governor bid gets reps 18 lawmakers north. APC PDP clash over Fubara Akpabio's political job as Wing's bearer. More detail of that can be found on page 14, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the metrics, food security, federal government commits 995 million euros to establish agricultural mechanization hubs across 774 local government areas. UEFA to use computer for Champions League draw. You can find details on page 16. Budget boss Onibinde backs Ningi, says no detailed project allocations for 3.7 trillion naira, demands detailed breakdown of the budget. You can start with the details on the front page. Budget padding claim is the big story. Senate falls apart. Akpabio bombed Ningi for causing huge damage to Senate with his wild accusation. Upper chamber in rowdy session as plot to unseat Akpabio as Senate president is unveiled. Jaribe opens fresh can of worms, reveals how some senators got 500 million naira from 2024 budget. Reactions trail Ningi suspension as embattled senator resigns as Northern Senators Forum chairman. All the details can be found on page 2. Tinubu appoints chairman commissioners of FCT Civil Service Commission. Insecurity worsens as terrorists abduct 61 in fresh Kaduna attack. Tinubu appoints ex-LAMAT boss Moberiola as new NIMASA director. Details can be found on page 9. And we have an entertainment story which you can find on page 16 concerning Rita Dominic, Judy Austin, and then Yul Edochie. Still on the paper, IGP intensifies effort to rescue kidnapped pupils in Kaduna and deploys mobile unit. Atiku accuses Tinubu of pursuing personal agenda at good governance expense, denies dumping PDP. You can find all the details inside the paper, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, rising insecurity, expert asks federal government to change strategy, restructure the country. On the 2024 Guba poll, Ayedatiwa declares governorship bid, says Akeredolu will be proud of him. More detail found in the paper. Senate in rowdy session suspend Abdul Ninge for 3 months, with the rider saying 500 million naira constituency project scandal rocked the upper chamber. Bamidele says there is plot to impeach Akpabio before July. And Batu Ninge resigned as chairman of the Northern Senators Forum. Ninge's suspension without inquiry amounts to cover-up, say Hurua, and then Akpabio leads senators to see Tinubu after Ninge's suspension. More detail found on page 29. And on Ramadan, pray for peace, stability of Nigeria. Tinubu urges Muslim faithful. Atiku accuses Tinubu of sponsoring report that he is exiting PDP. Gunmen invade UNTH Enugu, abduct director and one other. Detail on page 6. Also, here we are having on kidnapping. Afenifere calls for multi-level policing stakeholders meeting. More detail can be found in the paper. And also we are seeing more born Abuja market cars over killing of fleeing suspect, which we can see picture story showing that burning. And that's all on the Daily Independent newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, the big story, budget padding, Tinubu meets Akpabio as revelations of 500 million naira shared to senior senators unfolds. Senate suspends Ningi, more controversies hit upper chamber. We are all guilty. Nobody has a right to accuse Ningi. This is coming from Senator Jaribe. You can find details on page 4. And Stella, the question for me is why are they suspending him? Imagine we are in a group and then somebody comes out and say, okay, there is something missing in the budget and 3.7 trillion cannot be accounted for. Why are you suspending the person? It feels like you're trying to shut him up. When we see that what is supposed to be done is not being done, you know that somebody is hiding something. Because why is he being suspended? He is a lawmaker. Is it wrong for him to question certain things? It's not wrong. But suspending him looks like he has committed a crime to question the budget. Okay, if he wasn't there, which of course you're supposed to be there, that's the problem, first of all, because we saw the back and forth and the argument, I was not there, you were there, and all of that. You are supposed to be there as a senator. So first of all, you have to give your concrete reason why were you not there when the budget was being passed, scrutinized, seen, going through, and all of that. And then secondly, if you're coming now behind and you're asking that, okay, you know what, I have gone through the budget for myself and I'm seeing that 3.7 trillion is not accounted for, then I believe that when you suspend him, you're shutting him up. He's supposed to get an answer. Maybe he should be penalized rather for missing the session, because you are supposed to be there. You were voted to be there, to see, to sit down, and except if he has a concrete reason for not being there when the budget was being reviewed, then you can say, okay, but why were you not there? But suspending him is like, if anybody should come up and question what the 2024 budget is, that person is going to be. So it looks more like shutting him up because something means fish. If there's nothing, I think that there should be answers, because it's out there. Okay, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it, based on what I am seeing on my paper. That's why I said, rather than just coming with words. He's supposed to come with his papers, and I believe that that's what he did. And now he's been suspended, and then he's been shut up. This is it. This is it. And based on what I'm seeing here, the total is supposed to be 25 trillion. However, what is being presented is 28.75 trillion. So we need an account for the 3.7 trillion naira. And now we are seeing that more is coming out, that some senior senators are getting 500 million. So could it be that Nengi is saying the truth? Ningi rather is saying the truth concerning where is the 3.7 trillion? Because who are these senior senators and why are they getting 500 million? For what? To do what? Apart, this is apart from their constituency allowance. It's some. It's not every senator, it's some. And when you begin to see all of these things unfold, you help but wonder, why is he being suspended? It looks like they are trying to shut him up. And should it be looked further? Of course, yes, it should be. And these are the kinds of things that just makes me wonder if we are making way, growing in the country, if we're just where we are. Because when you see such things, when you see things coming up, floating, and it gives concern to Nigerians concerning if this 10th assembly is going to be good to the country or not, or if we're just going to have another brood or den of corrupt leaders who are just worried about their pockets and what will come to them rather than what will make Nigeria better eventually. So I'm just hoping that rather than just suspending him, if it means going over the budget again is important, because 3.7 trillion is a lot of money. We can't treat it as if it's just 5 million naira. We can't treat it that way. It's a lot of money. And if a senator is able to say this money is missing in the budget, and now we are starting to see that some money is being allocated to a few special senators and all of that, then we need to look into it early. I don't believe that is something that should just be left like that. And just as you said, there's no smoke without a fire. And I believe that there's a fire somewhere, and it should be looked into.
Rachel, I am totally in support of the fact that here we are having Hirua saying, why was he being suspended? The same question you are asking without a proper inquiry into all of this thing. And I keep saying it is very rare for senators to just come out and say something, Rachel, if you do not have.
We hardly see that.
We hardly see that, because you need to have facts to actually back up whatever allegation you're bringing. Secondly, I have just realized that ever since the state assembly started working, Rachel, there have been controversy from the very beginning appointment of the Senate president. Let's even start from the question of even the Senate president himself. We've seen a number of times people coming out to say, you know what, we need him to give us account of when he was the former governor of the state. What did he do? The fact that he still collects pension as a former governor and he's presently the Senate president. We had issues when there was an allowance that was supposed to go in, and they said it was a prayer. And nobody said anything. Nigerians asked for answers concerning that, and till date we're yet to get answers concerning that. Right now, Rachel, we're also having this issue here again about the issue of the SUV. Nigerians said what they would say, cutting off costs and all of that. We need to cut down costs of governance and all of that and all of that. It fell in deaf ears. Nigerians continue. Right now, we're having a senator coming out to say, you know what, 3.7, I don't know which project that money went into, because there was no any elaborate explanation to that. And here we are having the whole house trying to make it, because at first it wasn't him alone, Rachel, but eventually we had other senators drawing back, and he's left to stand alone. Now, what this will signal to us, Rachel, is the fact that we are having an administration that do not want to account for their deeds. Because this is what I'm seeing, irresponsible. Because we're having leaders who are not responsible to their members. We're having leaders that are not responsible to the citizens of the country. And that is why, Richard, this is where we hear people asking the question, where is the rule of law? Everybody is supposed to be under the law, Richard, but we have seen that over the years, certain people are above the law. If you are in this particular position, you cannot actually go to a particular scrutiny. It was in this government, or was it in this country rather, that we saw a precedent saying if you want your sins to be forgiven, join this party. And yet nothing was said about this. So the way in which we are moving in this country, I just hope we can retrace our steps back and actually to fix the things that are happening. Okay, 3 months suspension, right? I hope that 3 months will be enough for them to be able to fix their act together. 3 months will be enough for him to, if he still insists that this is what, to gather enough facts and present it. And we hope that his life will not be at risk eventually.
We hope.
Because we've seen a situation where the moment you try to speak the truth, your life is at stake. And it's a matter of time people try to shut you up. If they cannot shut you up by suspending, they will shut you up by another way. So we're looking forward to, when we say we are practicing democracy in this country, everybody have the right to ask a question. I mean, I should be able to call the president and say, based on this budget you presented, sir, like I do not understand this. I do not understand. Why should just 50 billion be given to the student loan grant? As a student, I do not think this money will reach me. And the president should be able to respond back. That is why sometimes we have town hall meetings where we sit the president, we sit any leader, when we feel that you're not doing what's supposed to be done. So we're looking forward to seeing a better approach, Rachel, from our leaders, whereby when you question them about a particular thing, it should not be short. I mean, answer us. Give us facts. Eventually, I mean, we saw earlier the Senate president was a bit shaky when this allegation came about. Eventually, he got his stand, and we're seeing that after the suspension, after the suspension, they visited the president. I really do not know what they had to discuss with the president.
Probably going to say, well, president, people are beginning to see that there's a problem with our budget. What are we going to do about it? And all of that, but everything says there's foul play somewhere. And I just hope that, Senator Abdul doesn't keep quiet about it. Because this is, I feel this is what true governance and leadership is. That you don't have to be with the majority. You stand on the truth until you get an answer. And he is in the position to get an answer. And sometimes when you keep quiet and you allow it be watered down, it's almost like you were just trying to make a buzz or put yourself out there. But if this led to his suspension, I believe that the Senate is hiding something. Because for whatsoever, it doesn't call for a suspension. Just as you said, you should be able to ask Mr. President this budget. And that is why we have them as our representative. Because you will not be granted the position to walk into a Senate session to ask. But then you have a representative, be it as a senator, who should ask. And I believe that this is what the senator did, speaking on behalf of all Nigerians, because he has access to this. And then why are you suspending him? And I believe that this is where it shows that definitely our 10th House of Assembly is hiding something. And it shouldn't be swept under the carpet. Nobody should be silenced about it. If a senator is coming out to say something is missing in the budget, it should be re-looked into again and reviewed again. And they should be able to answer him. The Senate president should be able to come out and say, this is the budget. And this is, are you okay now? And until he says it's okay, then before we can move past that. But until then, he shouldn't be silent. Still on Nigerian News Direct, other stories say CAC issues deadline for owners of 12,387 unclaimed certificates. Nigeria's pension assets surged to 19.5 trillion naira. Criminals targeting rural communities and schools, Adeleke cries out. APC-PDP trade wars over Fabio's comments at Isoko. And you can find details on page 2. Dr. Moboriola is new NIMASA DG as JAMO tenures elapses. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
A New Telegraph newspaper, World Bank, World Trade Union World Trade Organization pick Nigeria and others for the $1 billion digital trade initiative. World Bank, the World Trade Organization, have picked Nigeria and others for $1 billion digital trade initiative. More detail of that story can be found inside the paper. OPEC, Nigeria loses most increased production status to Libya. More detail in the paper. Reports of my planned defection from PDP false and malicious coming from Atiku. CBN to roll over 161.50 billion naira maturing treasury bills today. Tinubu appoint Morio Luaula, the new Namasa DG. You can find that on page 4 and 5. And here we're seeing 33 days to the 10th anniversary of the Chibok girls kidnap. Bandits again invade Kaduna community, abduct 61. In seeming renewed focus on school children and women, soldiers stop from taking over victims. This is coming from the residents. IGP deploy mobile police unit. And we have Gumi offers to negotiate with the terrorists. Timing of abduction pointer to motive. This is coming from Afeni Farah. Worries over the 40 trillion naira ransom demand. And I wonder why we will be having an anniversary. It's actually a sad one, Rachel. You remember, was it yesterday or so? I made mention of the fact that what happened to our Chibok girls till date, we're yet to hear anything. And this is about almost getting to 10 years after. How about Leah Sharibu? We're yet to hear anything about her, whether she's alive or not. Where is she right now? Nobody knows anything about it. I think it was just last year or so we saw that about 2 or 3 girls again from the Chibok were being discovered by some of the army, and then some of them were either pregnant or actually having toddlers they were working with. So that is to tell you that we have a lot of work to do. And here we're seeing that the pointer looks as if these terrorists are now facing the schools again. Just when we're thinking that their eyes was off there, we saw what happened in Ekiti State, where some of those students were being kidnapped, and then we also saw a number of attacks left, right, and center, killing of some monarchs and all of that. And now we're seeing that the attention is in school. We're yet to recover to over 200. Now we're seeing another fresh batch again have been kidnapped. And I'm just asking the question, what is the way forward? Are we trying to say our schools are no longer safe for students to study? Are we now saying that schools should now be closed down? Are we now saying that our country will keep going backward? Because we keep talking about the emphasis that education is important if we really want to be able to rub shoulders with other developed countries. So right now, I do not know the answer Mr. President have for us. I do not know the answer our Senate or our House of Reps have for us. I do not know the answer our security agency have for us. But we really need good and valid answer concerning how to protect not just our schools, but every other person, the life of every indigenous in this country. Valid, Rachel. We're not going to say it's just two. Two matters a lot. So I'm just hoping that something will be done about it, because it's really a sad reality. I'm just imagining how the parents of these students are coping presently, right now, the trauma and all of these things that they are going through presently, because they don't even have an idea what is happening, not to talk about what they are demanding. 40 trillion naira, 15 Hilux box, 11 motorcycles, amidst many other things that they are demanding from the federal government. So I'm just hoping that our government should do something. That is why we've been laying emphasis on the fact that, you know what, let us have the names on the people who are financing this. Say enough is enough. Why are you treating these people as if they are special, or they have this more, they are more Nigerian than other people? I think this is not right. So I'm hoping that our government truly will wake up and do something, so Nigerians will know that they have us in mind and that they are really ready to protect lives and property, as it is mandated their #1 responsibility.
Now we have an information here that from the resident that says soldiers stopped them from taking more victims. Why aren't the soldiers stopping them from taking no victims at all? It might look like some kind of achievement, but I keep saying that it is not an achievement. Stopping them from taking more victims is not good enough. You're supposed to stop them from taking victims completely. There's nobody. If you're not stopping it from happening, you're not working. That's what security is all about. You're to avert from happening. You're to avert an attack from happening. You're to stop it. You're to stop criminals from stealing. You're supposed to be 100 steps ahead. And this is where the failure is for me when it comes to our security in Nigeria, is that our security agencies are 100 steps behind terrorists, criminals, bandits, and all of that. They are yet to be 100 steps ahead of them. Everything is an action after an act that has been taken out. We've seen very few actions before. And that's because they have come into existence already. So all you're doing is just sweeping what have come into existence, but not stopping it from coming into place in the first place. And I believe that the answers we need is the action, Sele. That is the answer. Not telling us anything. Not we will meet with President Tinubu. Not this person saying enough is enough. Not that person saying we will bring them to book and all of that. The answers we need are actions. And until we start seeing actions, it means we have no answers whatsoever. It means that nothing has changed. Everything keeps happening the same way over and over and over again. And it's the 10th anniversary for the Chibok girls. And I mean, what this means is that some parents will never get to see their children again. Some might. That is the sad reality of what it's going to be. And it will be the same for these over 280 students, and now we are seeing over 60 more. That will be the fate of the same, because I mean, if 10 years ago we couldn't stop Chibok girls from happening, and 10 years after we couldn't stop abduction from happening, then how is there a proof that work is being done? How is there a proof that work is being done? If all those Chibok girls could not be rescued up till now, 10 years from now, what proof will it be? What assurance is it there for Nigerians that all of these current abductees will be released? That is how you know growth, is by the amount of success, by the amount of things that are no longer occurring again. If there was once a war, and 10 years later there's absolutely no war, that's when you will say this place has regained its peace. But as long as that thing keeps happening and repeating itself, then it means that there's nothing, there's no success whatsoever. It means that it's just the same thing that I don't know how to explain or express the fact that if Chibok girls couldn't be released completely 10 years ago, how are we sure that these people will gain their freedom completely? If there was no success recorded 10 years ago, when we should have been better, intelligence-wise, security-wise, operation-wise, if we could have been better in 10 years, but these same things keep reoccurring and happening again. What is the assurance that the fate of these current people in captivity will not be the same as that of Chibok girls, Dapchi girls, and every other people that have been abducted in the past ever since insurgency started in Nigeria? The answers we need are actions. And until action starts speaking louder than words, we are not getting our answers yet. And until we get to that point, we are still where we are 10 years ago.
You know, Richard, you've asked a question, I think, before, and you said, how come these people are always ahead of the government? Why don't we see that before they kidnap students, they'll meet security agency waiting for them? Stand by.
Yeah.
Let us see how you get to pass us to get to these schools. And just like you said, for every action, there should be a reaction. And what is the reaction coming from our government? We're on the matter. These people will be brought to book. And I wonder if that book is not filled today. These are questions that any parent will ask. You suffer to train a child. You suffer to source for the school fees. The government is not coming to help you in tuition fee. We saw what happened in Zafra, some of the ladies that were being kidnapped last year. And here we are back again with young children that don't even... Richard, it's painful. And I'm just hoping that our government will do something. Just like you said, what difference is it 10 years and now? I mean, we'll be expecting that we'll have grown past this level. But it seems as if one step forward, 10 steps backward is what we've been taking. And I hope that our government are listening to us, because you owe us an answer.
They do.
You do, because we elected you to office, and this is not what we bargained for. If you're not ready, if you're not capable of doing the work, then maybe you should just, with the remaining dignity you have, step back and let somebody else that is ready to take the bull by the horn do the job. Still a New Telegraph newspaper, we are having Tinubu present the 2024 FCT budget to reps. More detail on page 4 and 7. And on the issue of production, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria laments 80% profit loss to diesel purchase. Detail found inside the paper. 2024 budget padding controversy. Senate suspend Ninge for 3 months. You can find more inside the paper. We have some few writers under that story that say he misled the world, coming from the spokesman. Tinubu meets Akpabio and Jibrin behind closed door, and Battle Senator resigned as Northern Senators Forum chairman. You can find more detail on page 2, 3, and 5. None can survive with less than 100K monthly in Nigeria, says Chida, as Rep Assertion canvasses for living wage. And then we have more detail of that on page 4 and 5. Downside, we have a study that says maternal obesity tied to liver cancer risks in offspring. So I think this is a study that everyone that is actually having an interest should read that on page 7. We have a picture story where we can see the governor of Lagos State with other stakeholders. You can do well to grab the paper and see what that presentation is all about. And that's all a new Telegraph newspaper. But before we look further into the paper, we would love to take a break at this moment. Quite a lot to chew, looking at the suspension of Ninge, also looking at the kidnap of over 61 again in Kaduna, and there are many other stories on the paper. We'd love to hear your own views, so do well to drop them on our YouTube handle. Please stay tuned with us. We'll be right back after the break.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper, which we actually implore you to actually be part of the conversation by dropping your comment, your views on any of the story that is of interest to you. I'm Stella Elisha. I still have Rachel Tazi with me. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Stella.
All right, let's continue with the paper review.
On Daily Sun newspaper, the big story: senators expose one another. Lawmakers in near fisticuff as crisis takes party ethnic dimensions. We have Bauchi lawmaker Ningi gets 3 months suspension, resigns as chair Northern Senators Forum. Allegation damaged Senate integrity, a statement from Akpabio. Some senior members got 500 million naira each from palliative. This is coming from Jaibe. And then between 2 billion naira, 120 billion naira given as constituency fund, coming from Ninge. You can find details on page 6. Article dismisses report of leaving PDP, accuses Tinubu allies of being behind report. History will be kind to Tinubu, a statement from Shetima. Gunmen attack UNTH, abduct deputy director and security man. Bandits kidnap fresh 30 persons as IGP visits Kaduna. FCT say free for foreigners to conduct businesses, coming from Wike. Pension fund hits 19.53 trillion naira, gains 1.17 trillion naira in January. Tinubu approves appointment of FCT permanent secretaries, board members, and others. Criminals plan to attack schools, farms in Osun. Adeleke cries out. PDP declares Akpabio enemy of rivers over comment on Fubara. Details can be found on page 27. We have a picture story where we can see from left to right chairman of the occasion, Aremu Shegun Osoba, Vice President Kashim Shetima, author of the book, Sam Omotaye, and publisher. Then we have the Nigerian newspaper, and then we have Eric Osagi during its presentation of the book on President Bola Tinubu, titled Beating All Odds in Abuja yesterday. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
On this day newspaper, on rail, federal government secure $1.3 billion for completion of Kano Kastina Jebiya Marada project. You can find more of that detail of that story on page 10. Federal government presses billionaires to diverge user data amid Naira speculation probe. More detail on page 6. Tinubu meets Akpabio Jibrin after Senate suspending over budget padding allegation. We have some few writers under that story, and we have the picture story here where we can see the deputy leader of the Senate and also the Senate president and others after the suspension in the Senate chamber in Abuja. Again, we are having President Tinubu's renewed hope for oil and gas sector with bold directive, which we've seen a number where we have about 2.3 million jobs, $17.5 billion. That's about talking about minus 40%, and then we're looking at 21 in the first quarter of 2021 gotten from the oil and gas, and then we're seeing that we had an increase from 1.2 or so to 1.7 barrel of oil per day in the first quarter of 2024. You can grab the paper in more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, 3.325 trillion naira allocation, reps worry over ravaging insecurity. Probe utilization of $20 million saves school fund abduction of over 200 students. On economic crisis, Tinubu won't apportion blame. Coming from Shetima, says 2023 election most divisive in Nigeria's history. Kano Jigawa Katsina needs 600 megawatts daily, get 180 megawatts. This is coming from the distributing company in Katsina, Kano, and Jigawa. You can find details on page 28. The big story, alleged 3.7 trillion naira budget padding, how senators nailed Ningi. Opeyemi Musa Ibrahim Karimi orders set tone for his 3-month suspension. Jiribe claims so-called senior senators got 500 million naira each. Those who lost out in race for Senate presidency bent on ousting Akpabio, coming from Senate leader. Court can't stop suspension of Bauchi senator, coming from a Senate spokesman. Ningi resigns as Northern Senators Forum chairman. Akpabio meets with President Tinubu. Ayedatiwa formally declares for Ondo governorship. Osun governor raises alarm over planned attack on schools and farms. Bandits demand 20 million naira in exchange for Sokoto Sangai students. You can find details on page 29. Atiku tackles Tinubu over report linking him to PDP exit. Body of killed driver of kidnapped Ekiti school children recovered. You can find details on page 29, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the leadership newspaper, bandits demand 20 million naira ransom for the 15 Sokoto student. President appoint FCT, I take that story. President appoint FCT Commission Chair, Head of Service. More detail found on page 12. And what's trending here, we have Gumi willing to dialogue with bandits for the pupils, and then also we have a numbers Chatham bankers to induct 336 new members. More detail found on page 2. Tinubu has you in mind, Shetima tell Nigerians. More detail in the paper. And on the 3 trillion naira budget padding, which is the big story, Ninge's journey to 3-month suspension, which we have some key points on the suspension, the press conference, the president's reaction, group chat, BBC interview, and many others. And we're seeing other senators that have been suspended since 1999 for one reason or the other. So you can take a look at what they did and how it actually linked to the present senator that was being suspended. 3 Borno children died, 45,783 IDPs rendered homeless by fire. You can find more on page 12. Agora policy offers steps for Orusanya report implementation. Also, we have Shaibu denies being served with impeachment notice. He's actually saying to the Speaker of Edo State. You can find more detail of that story on page 12. And that's all on the Leadership newspaper.
On Nature News, Green Program, Nigeria signs £995 million agreement with Brazil and Dutch Bank. You can start with the details on the front page. Alake advocates use of mineral equity against foreign loan. The big story, Lagos government seek 126 billion naira to save coastal communities from erosion and ocean surge, whose federal government and private sector support. GB Foods engaged 3,335 local tomato outgrowers in Kebbi. Climate change, population growth threats to food production, coming from Abdul Razak. You can find details on page 6. Oyo joins Lagos, bans use of styrofoam packs. Dr. Moberola replaces Jamo as Nimasa DG. Details can be found on page 17. Nigeria must feed itself and export, says Tinubu. We have a nature care column on page 15 that says therapeutic benefit of dill ancient herbs. At the downside of the paper, Paul Cassie to make DP Walter come back with Porsche loophole. You can find details on page 21, and that's all news on Nature News.
On the Guardian newspaper, budget pardoning, we are all culpable. This is coming from Jimo, where we see he spoke about the 500 million naira award to ranking senators on set to expose National Assembly rot. So quite a number of can of worms have been opened. You look more in that story on page 6. Nigerians lament rising airfare as experts blame the exchange rate. Court striker suit seeking Igbo's exit from Nigeria. Revival of night patrol as peril to reforming the police and editorial on page 2. Bandits capture another 30 as IGP visits Kaduna. And then Naira free for lean budget Hubble Nigerian mission abroad. World Trade Organization inaugurates $1.2 million facility to boost food safety in Nigeria. More detail found on page 3, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, the big story, as Senate slams 3-month suspension on Ningi. Jaribe raises dust over 500 million naira for ranking senators. It's money for constituency projects coming from Bamidele, and Batu Bauchi lawmakers resign as Northern Senators chair. You can start with the details on the front page. Equity markets improves, investors' wealth appreciates by 836 billion naira. On African Games, Team Nigeria now second on medal table. 61 abducted as bandits attack another Kaduna community. 2023 presidential election most divisive in nation's history. A statement from Vice President Shettima says Nigerian candidate defeated religious candidate. Osoba Clark backs reps bill on homegrown government system. Kaduna Electric condemns NUEE action as unjustified. This is on strike. You can find details on page 10. Cattle rustling, grazing reserves problems will be over in 3 weeks. A statement from President Tinubu. And we started seeing that yesterday on the paper. You can find details on page 14. And that's all news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, Nigerian's crude oil output drops by 7% to 1.3 barrel per day, which we saw initially 1.6. Now we're seeing that it has actually dropped to 1.3. Now you ask the question, what happened to the remaining 300 barrel per day that was to be added to that? You can look into that story more on page 19. And on Apapa, Greek Lock, Lagos government impounds over 75 trucks. You can find more on page 39. Also, 2023 presidential poll most decisive in Nigeria's history, coming from the Vice President Sheitima. And on the alleged budget pardoning, rumples as Senator Speaker over money sharing with some few riders under. And I'd like to take just a few where we've seen Nige resign as the chairman. We've seen Akpabio meet Tinubu over the controversy, or after the suspension rather. What happened on Senate floor was embarrassing, says an ex-senator. We need to revisit our national priorities, coming from Sani, and I think it's very paramount that they do just that. Threat to life, Bauchi governor apologizes to Tinubu's wife. You can find more on page 13. Federal government postponed student loan scheme launch indefinitely. Now, we will record that that loan was supposed to kick off on Thursday. It has been suspended indefinitely. You can find more detail of why that happened on page 39 of the Vanguard newspaper. On African Games, Nigeria soared to number 2, overtakes Algeria and South Africa. And then also we're seeing that Atiku denies dumping the PDP slam Tinubu. Here we're seeing Tinubu receive a special envoy from Equatorial Guinea. You can see him over there. You can find more detail of that special invite inside the paper, and that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Business Day newspaper, starting with the big story, rising diesel costs chokes businesses. That is the big story, and you can find details inside the paper. Tinubu's dilemma amid reform backlash. A reformer faces the ire of his people. And that's all the news on Business Day newspaper.
Let's take a look at the oil and gas from Sweet Crook report, where we have federal government introduces tax credits and other measures to revamp oil and gas investment. You can find more detail inside the paper. Also, we have 26 plants generated 3,180 GWh of electricity in January. Also, NCDMB gets fourth governing council. Minister charges the body on raising Nigerian content bar. You can start on the front page and continue on page 2. Nigeria's oil sector sees 43% decline in foreign capital inflow. You can read more detail of that inside the paper, and that's all on the Sweet Crook reports.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, the big story, NFS settles for Omuneke to coach Super Eagles. Salisu Yusuf Onwokachi set to battle him. You can find it on page 6. The Brian tempted to accept Mahmoud 120 million euros offer. Details can be found on the back page. After AJ defeat, Iguano quits. You can find details on page 7. Man United's wage bill soars again to £479 million, but still owed more than £750 million. You can find details on page 2. Man City considers Guimaraes' £100 million release clause. You can find that story inside the paper. Injured Griezmann returns for Inter clash. More details can be found on page 3. Salah Alexander-Arnold set for Liverpool return. Mbappe to wear number 9 shirt at Real Madrid next season. Barca keen to splash 140 million euros on Luis Diaz. You can find details inside the paper. Osimhen wants £250,000 per week to quit Napoli. You can find details inside the paper. Chukwueze market value drops, Wabali Oruyi's stocks rise. WBC clears winner of Fury Usyk to face Joshua. You can find details at the back page, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
And on the Business Times newspaper, pension fund climbs to 19.53 trillion naira in January, detailed on page 10. Man LCCI loan federal government suspension of expatriate employment levy. And here, coming from the Minister of Solid Minerals, Adeleke urges mineral reserve as equity to avoid debt traps. You can find more on page 6. The big story here, with $48 per barrel oil production cost, Nigeria has global interest. Coming from Falake, says the higher cost of extracting a barrel of crude oil from the ground, the less fund available to the government and Nigerians. How Africa can unlock the world's most promising net zero solution. Federal government secures $1.3 billion for completion of the Kanu-Marada Railway project. African countries should unite on reform of global financial architecture. You can read that on page 18. Experts oppose the IMF call on electricity subsidy removal, say it will have adverse effect on Nigerians. You can find more detail on page 2. And that's all on the Business Times and also how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Celine.
Thank you also to our viewers. Thank you to the production crew and every other person that made this program a success. Until we come your way again, do have a blessed day ahead.